Hi everyone. So we're on chapter 9 now, and chapter 9 reads this way. Then Job replied, Indeed, I know that this is true. But how can mere mortals prove their innocence before God? Though they wished to dispute with him, they could not answer him one time out of 1,000. His wisdom is profound, his power is vast. Who has resisted him and come out unscathed? He moves mountains without their knowing it, and overturns them in his anger. He shakes the earth from its place, and makes its pillars tremble. He speaks to the sun, and it does not shine. He seals off the light of the stars. He alone stretches out the heavens, and treads on the waves of the sea. He is the maker of the Bear and Orion, the Pleiades, and the constellations of the south. He performs wonders that cannot be fathomed, miracles that cannot be counted. When he passes me, I cannot see him. When he goes by, I cannot perceive him. If he snatches away, who can stop him? Who can say to him, What are you doing? God does not restrain his anger. Even the cohorts of Rahab cowered at his feet. How then can I dispute with him? How can I find words to argue with him? Though I were innocent, I could not answer him. I could only plead with my judge for mercy. Even if I summoned him and he responded, I do not believe he would give me a hearing. He would crush me with a storm and multiply my wounds for no reason. He would not let me catch my breath, but would overwhelm me with misery. Even if it is a matter of strength, he is mighty. And even if it is a matter of justice, who can challenge him? Even if I were innocent, my mouth would condemn me. If I were blameless, it would pronounce me guilty. Although I am blameless, I have no concern for myself. I despise my own life. It is all the same. That is why I say, He destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When a scourge brings sudden death, He mocks the despair of the innocent. When a land falls into the hand of the wicked, He blindfolds its judges. If it is not He, then who is it? My days are swifter than a runner. They fly away without a glimpse of joy. They skim past like boats of papyrus, like eagles swooping down on their prey. If I say I will forget my complaint, I will change my expression and smile. I still dread all my sufferings, for I know you will not hold me innocent. Since I am already found guilty, why should I struggle in vain? Even if I washed myself with soap and my hands with cleansing powder, you would plunge me into a slime pit, so that even my clothes would detest me. He is not a mere mortal like me, that I might answer him, that we might confront each other in court. If only there were someone to mediate between us, someone to bring us together, someone to remove God's rod from me, so that his terror would frighten me no more. Then I would speak up without fear of him. But as it now stands with me, I cannot. So as you recall from the previous video, Job is responding to Bildad. And the first thing he says is that God has an infinite amount of power. He's talking about the way in which God can single-handedly determine whether or not the sun shines, right? Whether or not um, the moon is able to give light, um, whether or not mountains stand, um, and you'll hear a lot of these references to nature, um, these um, I mean, it's really it's these are figurative claims designed to um, demonstrate the authority of God. Um, and you kind of you get a sense of that with the flood back in Genesis. That's really um, you know that's one of the ways that we see the full extent of God's um, power. Um, but we also understand that God does have influence in regards to the weather, natural disasters and things of that nature. Um, well, he is obviously God is not going to uh, allow the sun not to shine, um, but he's saying that to say that in the same way that God has control over the world, over the natural um, aspects of the world, he also has control over Job's circumstance. Um, and indeed, for him, God has um, demonstrated um, his power. And again, we kind of, get into, uh, some murky territory when we're talking about um, the way in which uh, Job was uh, afflicted, by whose hand was he afflicted. And the text, as I believe I alluded to in one of the first few videos, that the text really seems to suggest that um, uh, God was a secondary figure in that he did not directly uh, strike Job with illness. He did not directly uh, send the um, storm that killed his children. He did not directly cause Job's possessions to be uh, revoked, but rather he allowed the enemy to do that by his own hand. Um, and the second thing he says is that God works discreetly. He works um, in secret. You may have heard the phrase, God works in mysterious ways. And here, we sort of we see some duality here, because on the one hand, God is so powerful that he can shake the world, right? He can command the sun and the stars. Um, he can command the wind and the rain. Um, but yet he is not um, uh, he's not one to operate um, um, in such a way that he can be seen by everyone. That his work um, is able to be um, watched um, by his people. And so, in that sense, God is very elusive. So much so that it may be uh, uh, it may be assumed that uh, God's power is limited. Um, but in reality, God's power is unlimited. It's very extensive. And Job talks about this a lot. He talks about how all of a sudden it seems as though God has hidden himself from Job. Um, it, it seems as though uh, God has um, removed himself from Job, and um, that you know God is unable to be reached, and he's so distant um, that Job doesn't even have access to him. Um, and particularly, in his time of distress, that was a source of anxiety for Job, because there was this sense that Job was essentially left to die, and Job talks very openly about that as well. This uh, uh, conviction that he's just not going to make it. That the trajectory is clear. Um, that he's going to die, and that's what he genuinely believes. Um, so in the next video, we're going to talk about the last 2 points.